Hello to everyone who is watching this Q&A session for the documentary A Youth featured in the 15th Charity Refugee Film Festival. This is Suzanne from UNHCR Hong Kong, and we have Giorgio Bosisio, the film director, with us to share more about his experiences when shooting this film with his other thoughts. This year, the message of the World Refugee Day is whoever, wherever, whenever. Everyone has a right to seek safety. Our youth has depicted the struggles of young refugees from Afghanistan, covering topics including family reunion and the loss of directions living in a new country, especially during their adolescence. So let's begin with our first question to Giorgio. How did you actually meet Payman and his friends, and why did you choose to make a film about their stories?
So, well, I started going to Greece in 2016 as a volunteer, like kind of independent volunteer, and this experience continued in 2017 for a longer time. I was there for 5 months, volunteering in different situations with NGOs, with more independent solidarity movement stuff. And Payman, I met him while running a stop motion animation workshop in this initiative that was bringing kids from refugee spots, which for who doesn't know, there were kind of occupied spaces that were run by international and Greek solidarity movements together with asylum seekers and refugee community. And Payman was living there, and this workshop was trying to bring young people from a Greek school and people living in these spots, young people, and kind of doing the workshop together. So it's sort of like integration kind of approach. And I met Payman there. He was actually the oldest of the guys, and we bonded immediately because I was asking him what music he liked, and like he immediately started rapping. And put that in, and I asked him like, if he had recorded his tracks, and he said no. So basically, 2 days later, we were recording his first track in one of the rooms of this spot hotel. We shot the first music video. So that's how everything started with it. So there was not like an idea of making a film at first, and there wasn't for a long time before we actually moved in.
So for how many years you have spent time with him before like you decided to make it a documentary?
Something like 1.5 years, maybe something, or maybe almost 2. So, yeah, like more or less. Also because then the first part of the film, I just wanted to shoot a very tiny like portrait film, because the idea was like, my very ambitious idea was like, I want his music to be listened, and I want media to kind of like attract the attention of the media. So I thought like, okay, if we sum up the music video together with like a little portrait that says something about him, maybe it's more attractive for a journalist to make a story about him. And of course, your ambition in the sense of like, this maybe will help this case, maybe, or whatever. I just thought that his lyrics were really strong and they spoke to me, and I thought maybe they had to reach us more than his, community back home. So that's how it started, and then finding the money, the project expanded and became what it is.
So I know that you are based in Milan, and is that also you spent some years in Greece or in Athens to just for volunteering and for other projects, and that's why you met Payman and other friends of his?
Sorry, what is the question?
Yeah, did you stay for Athens for quite some time doing volunteering and other projects together?
Yeah. So as I said, I was like 3 weeks in 2016. Then I was about 5 months in 2017, split between Leros, which is one of the islands, registration islands, kind of where the camps are near Turkey, and I was kind of like going back and forth with Athens. And then since the beginning of the project, I was kind of like there every few months, like going back and forth. I never like lived more than 2 months in Athens. in a row, but like it was this constant back and forth basically. And still now, sometimes we recently went back, me and Peyman, who shot his last music video, and it's still a place that a lot of our friends are still there, and like and it's still a place that has a strong meaning for both of us.
Yeah, and just as a remark for the audiences watching this Q&A, Greece has actually hosted over 186,000 refugees and asylum seekers, including over 5,000 unaccompanied children. So we know that most of them are coming from Afghanistan, Syria, and Iran and Congo and so on. And that's why it's quite actually not very uncommon to meet Afghan youths in Greece, and that's why I think you may also understand more about the context of the country, and that's why we have this film having Giorgio filming Afghan youth, and of course it's also due to his volunteering experiences. And here we understand more about the issue about Afghan youth's struggle in this documentary. And I think one of the things that we have in when watching this video is that they express themselves a lot in their music and poems. So I'm just curious, do you also speak Persian yourself, and how do you communicate with these boys when you were there?
Well, our communication changed a lot because at first Peyman didn't really speak that much English. I didn't know any Persian. We didn't have any Greek either. So it was very much like something that I've got really used to do anyway throughout my life, which is trying to find a way of communicating. Doesn't matter with whatever you find, it's fine. You know, like you can use your hands. I'm Italian, that helps me in that. Like you can use your gesture, your face, communicating emotions, and then you know, like you would always have people around you that would speak a little bit more of English. So you kind of like top it up with, and that the beginning was like this, and then like basically as we started the project, we got like at the beginning there was also this close friends of Peyman, which spoke perfect English, so it would be always like the in between. And then after, when we started the long part of the filming, we had an interpreter, which was actually just a friend of mine, Iranian friend of mine, and he just was this, you know, we were one person in a way, because actually he's a very quiet and gentle person, so it was very much like whispering in my ear while we were filming to understand more or less where we were, what was going on, and also like, you know, speaking what I was speaking. So it was really interesting in this way, because language in a way, I don't know, like I was always late, you know, with what's happening, like also for jokes or things like it. But in the end, you find a way to understand each other. Like there's a lot I understand of Peyman, even when I don't speak Persian. He says stuff and I already know what he said, you know, because like you have to change the way you understand each other when you're missing the language. But of course, like they taught me the classic bad words, or like you know, how you're like the gang kind of slang that they use, because also they are mixed between Iranian kind of Farsi slang and Dari, which is their dialect. So there's a mix there as well. So, but yeah, now English, Peyman's English is better. He's learning German actually now, because he managed to get to Austria in the end. Yeah, I won't say much about this. This is like giving out a bit of the film.
It's very amazing for us to hear how you actually surpass the language barriers to communicate with Peyman and his friends, and there are just seemingly some connections among human that we can still understand each other without really like communicating in the same language. So I think this is also why it's so important to have like films as a medium to really bring people inside the context and to experience the lives of the others, even though maybe like those music is actually the rapping is actually in Persian, but still like you can get the meaning and the sorrows inside with the rhythm and the tone. So Yeah, this is a very incredible experience for me while I was watching this documentary. And I really appreciate that you put this a perspective of music in, and that helps us to understand more apart from the very serious stuffs about refugee crisis everywhere, and then you get the human touch from here.
Yeah, no, I think like also like it's interesting to say that because I really feel, the film itself is the product of this relationship in a way, of this interaction, this possibility of interaction when you're lacking, maybe a shared experience, shared language, shared culture, and I can really see also like when we are together, like we really created a language that is a mix of many different languages, and I don't know, and I think that there's something that, like, I mean, at least this is what the film is for me. It's the product of this, if there was a visual way to visualize it, it's like to take down a border that like sometimes, even like somehow the way that we look at these difficult situations, like can be the migration crisis, is the fact that usually we are very separated from it. Like we encounter it on the street, we encounter it at the station, but I think the issue is that like yes, because there is this language barrier, we are afraid of the possibility of it, like I don't know, of not like being able to communicate, and then like there is a missed opportunity to actually know each other's stories, and actually understanding that really you are the same thing. I mean, for me, it was really a jump back into adolescence, being with them and kind of seeing all the things that I was doing, and then it's really easy to connect somehow. And of course, payment in Spain was particularly amazing. But
yeah, I can hear also from your sharing that it sounds like a very exceptional experience to you as a film director as well during this filming journey. And moving on to the next question we have, one of the many struggles facing these Afghan youths throughout the film is that they have to actually wait for a long time to go through those legal procedure before they can be resettled in a third country to start a new life. So it seems to me that their lives have been suspended because of their legal identity or uncertain future. So how do you think making music or poems help them express their frustrations?
well, I think like my opinion, I mean, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not I don't have this research to back me up. But like at least from the experience I had, like spending time with them, is the fact that, especially in this moment of life where basically they are in between, 16 to 20 years old, and it's actually super important moment to actually define who you are. It's a moment where you're looking, at what you want to do, what you want to get into, but like you're in this super delicate moment. Actually, you're spending your time. You change 4 countries. You're constantly like kind of changing the place where you sleep, the people that you're surrounded by, the sort of tension or not tension, like this. You never know. It's very hard, I think, to look at the future in a way, because you don't even know where you will be. That which means like, shall I learn a language? Shall I not learn a language? That they were all questioning. Shall I speak, like learn Greek, spend this time learning Greek, or shall I wait to learn so that I will learn German? And also at the same time, they have this kind of new freedom that like they didn't have before, because suddenly they are in a European city, and like they come from places that sometimes maybe like they don't have this, maybe even just the word is different. So I think music for payment, because not all of them does sing, some do, but like it was really important in kind of giving him something that's like, this is me, this is me, like around me there is the same song, like, oh, you're refugees, you're Afghan, you're whatever, like, and this is something that I think to say, like, this is payment, this is me, and this is my voice, and this is who I want to be, and helping to like ground something that that made him like look at a future in some kind of structured way, more than others that were a bit like, what is going to be of me, you know? So in that sense, I think it was really great. And of course, like you organize your thoughts, your emotion into beautiful sentences, beautiful lines, verses that has a power. I mean, there is a magic, I think, in this, you know, like as much as there is in film. And even if you're an amateur and you're not like amazing at it, I think like the moment that you found this verse and then you shout it out loud, and I don't know, like with the music supporting it and your friends are like clapping, I think there's something like similar to like you know, breaking the chords. So, like it's a magical thing.
Yeah. So I think you mentioned one point is about payment. He has his own identity. This is me, and outside of him, it's like with his other identities, like being an Afghan refugee or other that identify him. But I think here music really helps us to sometimes just to get rid of those labels, stick on one person to just understand. We are just the same human being. We share these feelings and emotions, no matter we are from Afghanistan or like our audience is from Hong Kong. Like they are something that we can really connect. And I think in this process, when we are talking about some asylum seekers or refugees, when they arrived in another country, waiting for legal procedure, actually before this stage, this year in our World Refugee Day, we want to emphasize also one message is that anyone fleeing persecution, conflict, or human rights abuses has the right to seek protection in another country. So this is the first step before Payman and his friends being able to be staying in Athens, even though they have encountered other issues, maybe feeling very lost in the city. But before this stage, we at least have to allow people to be able to seek safety. And we also want to advocate for a message that we should also ensure asylum seekers, refugees, and displaced people can have safe access. And we also have to just make sure all applications for refugee status must be given fair consideration, no matter what's their race or religion or gender or country of origin. So we have to really protect people who are being forced to flee their homes after they have endured lots of traumas already, and giving them the safety that they need is the first stage. And afterwards, what we can really provide them with, like opportunities to actually study or to maybe join some music group or other skills building workshop that can be like tools that we can help refugees to rebuild their new lives. So I think this documentary has allowed us to see it from a more multi-perspective to expand our understanding about how we can support refugees and what they really need in this whole journey. And I think the next thing we can talk about is more about Payman's family within his circle. So Payman's brother Iman was actually not staying with the family. And so Payman and his mother was in Athens, and we see in the film that Payman's mother actually was very desperate to reunite with Iman and all other brothers of Payman. So I saw that his mother actually called them frequently to check if they're okay. And sometimes she cried even during New Year when thinking about her sons. So as you are following Payman's family very closely, would you say family reunion is the top priority to the mother?
Yeah, I mean, like just to give a little introduction, because I feel like the film choosing this observative kind of narrative lacked some time on making like the narrative clear in that sense. But just to give you a little update, like understanding is like Payman and his family arrived in Greece just after the EU-Turkey deal was signed, which basically changed a little bit the structure of the way to have closed the borders between Greece and the Balkan countries, so stop that sort of like the route that was bringing people were just kind of crossing, walking with whatever other transportations, and started to basically stop people coming in from Greece on the islands that are just by Greece, building these kind of registration centers, camps where people ended up staying even for years there, waiting for like filing their requests, but basically being stuck there. So Payman was one of the last people that managed with his family to reach Athens, but like he couldn't cross the border, he couldn't go to Europe. So like they split in order to invest basically the money they had left for some of them to reach into mainland Europe, and Payman and his mother stayed behind, and actually, yeah, and basically like with the hope of using family reunification as a means to unite. I think it becomes an economical matter of like, how do I reach, safety actually, because Greece, as much as Turkey, especially in that period, wasn't a safe place to be. Like the camps were overcrowded, the conditions were not good. So I think, I don't know, again, yes, of course, the family reunification was central for the mother, because also, from my understanding, like the family is the home for them. Like, they've been in Afghanistan, they lived in Iran, they lived in Turkey, they lived in Greece, and the mother idea of home is the fact of having her children around. It's this structure that makes her feel safe, and it's the structure that allows also for all of them to function, because like, also economically it works, because like, someone will have a job and they will pay into the family and allow who didn't get a job yet to, to find it, and there is a balance that works as a block of the family. The moment that you're just alone with your son, that is, kind of like growing up and figuring stuff out, makes it, you're cutting out a limb of this functioning thing, which is the family. So I'm not sure if that answered the question, but like, I think, and also just to end on that, to say like that actually, the film ends with basically Payman being rejected unification because he's an adult. And the story didn't finish there, of course. Like Payman stayed for 8 months, more or less, in Greece. Went back to live in the camp with his friends and moved around different friends. And then he tried to, to reach his family in another way, until he managed. And after a few months after that, he was given asylum in Austria, so he was accepted. Again, to me, it's like shows how surreal is this in a way, that how much money, how much danger was to be taken by this young man just to be with actually the most functional social economical structure. That, so I think there's this, when we think of safety, I don't know, I think we should like really like expand our, like of course everybody should get safety, but like it's much more complex in a way, because there's a lot of young people that stayed, they were 19 maybe, they were adult, and they ended up like being left behind, and that's really not an easy journey to take. In fact, the film is dedicated to one of his friends of ours that lost his life. I mean, well, took his life because of this. I mean, or at least also because of this. So I think there's a lot to look into, I think, to make this actually a safety system.
Yes, I think the issue surrounding family separation is actually very complex, as you said. Like, it's sometimes they just forced to be fleeing to neighboring countries without much consideration about whether the place that they are fleeing to is safe enough, or sometimes maybe they also have their own economical reason, like maybe they also worry they can't really make a living in certain countries, and that's why some family members may separate in this fleeing journey. And I would say, like, it's really important just to make sure that for us who would like to support refugees, we are actually trying our best to help to keep families together, because we also understand that family separations really bring pains beyond words. Like, to many displaced families, they always just longing to meet their family again and build a new life together. So one of the keys in our World Refugee Day is also talking about providing humane treatment for refugee families. And we also prioritize keeping refugee families reunion as our priorities, as we believe that everyone deserves to actually have a more respected and dignified life, that they can choose to stay with their family, or they can also choose which country they feel more safe that they can stay in to rebuild their lives. So I guess back to this documentary, we also feel like there is a very strong sense of loss that has been penetrating inside the film. And in many of the situations, we see that the young refugees, they actually don't really have the choice to determine their own future. They are just waiting for the decisions to come. And how did you personally feel for them when you were recording the ups and downs that they have been going through?
I think, like, I mean, like, in a way, like, to me, well, like, when I started the film, I had a very different plan, because, like, Payman was still living in this refugee occupied space, and I was very interested in actually looking at this, different community mixing and kind of finding a way to, to sort of like work together, share the kind of like decision, share the kind of work that is necessary. But then when I actually ended up arriving in Athens to shoot, Payman had left this place, and suddenly he was in an accommodation for vulnerable cases, like his mom, like a single mother with minors, basically, so on. So like the plan changed. I remember the first night we went out while I was there, like it's actually when I met a lot of his friends, because since that point I'd met some, but like very briefly, and suddenly, I was there with, like, I came like also to Greece to volunteer with such like huge sense of like something really wrong happening, and like and I feel like a citizen that kind of is at the other side of the board, that I need to relate more directly with what's happening, because news are really confusing. But then, like, when I was with them, actually I saw a completely different side, which is like, I don't know, there was this joy, and like they would always offer me drinks, as like, they would buy the beer, they would get the chips, and they had their spot on the hill, and we would go there, and then one would start rapping, and there was this actual completely, I was kind of like, okay, when is going to be about the sad stuff, let's say, as it's, stupid. And then actually I was confronting the complete opposite, which was like constant, like, fun, irony, sarcasm. And I loved the way that, like, they broke down they like, the insanity of what was going on around them and in their life, but they made jokes about it, which was like amazing, because like you wouldn't dare to make a joke, but they could, of course, and they were like, like making fun of all this, of being beaten up by the captain of the boat, like to be these, but they found a way, which of course, like doesn't make it less traumatic and dramatic, but like actually I found super interesting the way that they made sense of this void, you know, that in a way they, you know, even their relationships, they're extremely ephemeral because they met in a camp and then the day after one is left. His parents decide to go to whatever. They found like a way or they got family unification. And so like one is in Austria, one is in Germany, one stayed in Greece, one was sent back. And you know, a friend suddenly it's gone, you know, and suddenly even if this is the situation, they, you know, they really bonded and they really stayed close. There was like this, you have this thing every day that you call each other. It's like, what do we do today? You know, and you make sense of that day together. And I think that was, you know, besides what is the let's say the downside of like waiting and not knowing what is going to be your life about. I think the most beautiful lesson for me was that they made sense of it in that moment. You know, that there was something extremely, and I think that's what I actually wanted to capture in a way. The fact that I don't know, there was something incredible in their resilience and lightness as well, you know, because of course I saw a lot of down moments, but actually, you know, like Payman, I like kind of always smiled to me, like, and it was me more, you know, upset than him sometimes. So really, like, yeah, I answered.
Yes, I'm also very impressed by their resilience. Somehow, like sometimes when you just have so many things out of your control, like being sarcastic and making fun with your friend or hanging out with your friends, are just some of the ways that you can relieve your emotions and just to you if you have to live your life anyway, like why not choose the fun way and the happy way to handle. So it's kind of like through this film, I also feel that it's like a reminder to us, like no matter how difficult the situations are in front of us, even though for these refugee youth, they are encountering like even more difficult situations and they are still trying to figure out ways to deal with all these challenges. And I think when we are talking about protecting refugees or giving them the opportunities, of course, we talk a lot about safety already, and we know that it's actually just a start. And once people have been out of the harm's way back home, actually, we need to give them more opportunities so that they won't be just like having nothing to do in the city and just trying to survive. We want to give refugees the power to actually thrive instead of just survive. So this is also one of the messages we want to promote in UNHCR, that it's just if we have more people who are with us to really create a better environment, to give more opportunities to these refugees to study or to work or just to take part in the society, then they won't be really left out so much, and they can also have their potentials realized. And at the end of the film, you also mentioned that actually Payman has already reunited with his family and he was granted asylum eventually. So I just wonder, do you still have contacts with Payman and learned about his life right now? Is he still like producing music, or has he taken some other paths and begin a new journey in other countries?
So yeah, no, of course we are in contact, and we last year we recorded like some new tracks, and with like very professionally recorded. Like we finally could move between both, so he came to Milan, and we recorded together with the composer of the film 3 tracks, of which one came out with a new music video that we shot in Athens last year as well. And he is currently, you know, he went through phases because actually, you know, he arrived in Austria and then the pandemic started. So like basically he found himself again confined, again kind of like, you know, with rules to follow, or not being able to start to learn German or started like a German course, like he worked, he moved between a lot of places because he's looking for work, and he was in Salzburg, he was in Amsterdam, he was also in Pakistan at the beginning. So he's kind of like looking for his place, and as you can imagine, it's not easy. He's the last one of the family that arrived. Everybody speaks German, everybody has jobs, everybody's in school, and it's kind of the last one having to sort that out. But yeah, so he's doing it. And I love recently when he told me that he was looking into chakra and how he felt like some of his chakra was blocked and like he needed to like work on them to open them. And I don't know, it's also like finding his own way of dealing with the people that we experience inside. But yeah, so it's still in the process of finding his place.
Yeah, that's good to hear that he's taking up new language and also exploring different opportunities that he has in the new country. And just coming to our final question for you is that do you have any words you would like to share with audiences in Hong Kong and Macau, even though we're really far away from Europe, but still, do you think like there are actually something individuals can do to support refugees from all different countries, and no matter where we are, and how can we actually really show more care to refugees if after watching this documentary?
Well, first of all, thank you all for watching the film. Thank you for giving us the screen and giving us this opportunity, and also spending this time talking with me. I don't know. I mean, like, I think this is something that we all in the world has to relate to. I think maybe before it was a question of politics, it was a question of I don't know. It's always been something that like as a average citizen you don't maybe have to relate to. But I think we are at a point in history where it's important that we as individuals relate to this question of like what does it mean where the place that you live is not you cannot live there anymore. Whatever is that is for war, persecution, or climate reason, there's no food, there's no like the condition to live there. So I think wherever you are, kind of looking into like, because there's always people moving, and sometimes they are refugees, sometimes they are not. But I think even just putting that question of like like starting that conversation of like, hey, what's your name, and just getting a sense of who's around you gives you like I think that's what would be my vibe. That like there's beautiful things to bring to your life. Besides the fact that it's like, of course, it's a very relevant issue that we should all have a thought, have an opinion, have an act. Like knowing how to act when we are going through that in our society, in our community. Because we will see more and more, especially in privileged countries like ours and yours as well, like that we are for a big part in a privileged position. So it's important to relate, not just as we are the privileged, we are the unprivileged, but really as like we are me and you, and I want to know about you. Yeah, I think that would be my invitation.
Yes, I also think like being willing to spend more time to just really understand the others, no matter what their identities are, no matter they're refugees or not refugees. After all, we are just human beings, and we can just share our stories with each other and be each other's supports. And it's really important just to connect with people and be open-minded and inclusive. And this is how we really get to really solve the refugee crisis that we are facing right now, because actually our latest displacement figure has already hit 100 million displaced people in the world. So it's quite a very stunning milestone we have this year. And this figure has shown the gravity of all different conflicts. And that's why we have to really mobilize more people to show more empathy and to show more understanding towards refugees in their own communities. And so I would like to express my gratitude to Giorgio once again for the time sharing with us your experiences and reflections. And I believe this documentary has really given audiences the chance to understand the frustrations and also the funny moments that those Afghan refugees have in a new country. And we would like this film festival to be also able to motivate more people to care about the forcibly displaced people around the world. And so some more words for those who are watching this video. If you would like to learn more about other refugee stories or our work in UNHCR, you can visit unhcr.org/HK. And we're also looking forward to Giorgio's future project, supporting refugees or any other topics that you're working for, and all the best to your work. And thank you everyone for joining us here.